Storm Shadow missiles have achieved quite significant achievements since the first day of the return to the battlefield. The Storm Shadow missiles almost became the quarterback. Several Russian targets in occupied southern Ukraine have been hit by Storm Shadow missiles. During these attacks, Russian troops also suffered a large number of casualties. For a long time, Storm Shadow missiles did not appear on the front line. However, it has reappeared recently. Russian facilities located at Russian-occupied points in southern Ukraine were hit by Storm Shadow missiles. The counteroffensive launched by the Ukrainian Armed Forces is continuing in full swing. At the same time, the Ukrainian army is also conducting important operations against Russian positions remaining on the edge of the front line. In particular, regions such as Melitopol, Mariupol, and Berdyansk are being hit by the Ukrainian army. According to the latest reports, the Ukrainian army recently carried out a new attack with the Storm Shadow missiles. So what did these attacks lead to? Let's take a look at these developments behind the front line together. As you may remember from our map reports, the Ukrainian army recently liberated the Eurasian region from Russian occupation. The liberation of this region was an important threshold for the advances of Ukrainian army to Berdyansk, Mariupol, and Melitopol. After the successes achieved in Ukraine, the Ukrainian army began its advance in Melitopol, Mariupol, and Berdyansk, creating new fortifications. Recently, the spokesman for General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Andriy Kovalev, made statements about the latest situation both in Eurasia and in the south of Ukraine. Kovalev used the following statements in his statement. During the offensives, units of Ukrainian Defense Forces liberated Eurasia and are consolidating their positions. At the same time, Ukrainian soldiers are opening artillery fire on designated enemy targets and taking measures against batteries of enemy artillery. The attacks of Ukrainian army and Ukrainian artillery units on the region are attracting a lot of attention. Recently, Storm Shadow missiles were seen again over the skies of southern Ukraine. Ukrainian artillery units had again targeted Russian targets in southern Ukraine. The target of the Storm Shadow missiles was the Russian-occupied Yurivka. The missiles launched in early morning were targeting Russian military facilities located in Yurivka. Moreover, important commanders of the Russian army were also present at these military facilities. According to the allegations, a Russian commander who was at the military facilities during the missile attacks of the Ukrainian artillery units had also lost his life. According to local sources, Russian Colonel Viktor Anatolievich Kovalev was present at Russian military facility when Storm Shadow missile attack by the Ukrainian artillery troops began. A big explosion occurred when the Storm Shadow missiles hit military facilities. As a result of the explosion, the ammunition contained in the military facilities also caught fire, and a large fire occurred in the area. According to the allegations, Russian Colonel Viktor Anatolievich Kovalev also lost his life during these explosions and fires. The allegations about Russian Colonel Viktor Anatolievich Kovalev has not been yet confirmed. However, many local sources in the region confirmed the claim that Kovalev has lost his life. At the same time, Russian sources confirm that Kovalev was killed. The new waves of attacks launched by the Ukrainian army with the Storm Shadow missiles has caused a great panic among Russian sources. Many Russian sources are warning the Russian general directorates to send new air defense systems to the region. It is claimed that the shock wave created by these attacks of the Ukrainian army in the region drove the Russian troops into panic. It is stated that the missile attacks organized by the Ukrainian army caused a great trauma to the Russian troops in the region. It is reported that due to the attacks of the Ukrainian troops in the southern Ukraine, the Russian army has shipped out a large number of important reserves. As a spokesperson of the Ukrainian General Staff stated, Ukrainian troops are advancing to Berdyansk step by step. Therefore, the Berdyansk region is under the threat from the Ukrainian army. Therefore, Russian troops began to send their reserves located in Berdyansk to Mariupol. According to the allegations, Russian supply troops moving from Berdyansk after the attacks of the Ukrainian army were seen in the direction of Mariupol. It is reported that a large number of ammunition in Berdyansk was shipped to Mariupol and supply in convoy in question. According to the allegations, Russian troops are afraid that the ammunition found in Berdyansk will fall into the hands of the Ukrainian army. Therefore, we can mention that the Russian army will not take defensive positions in Berdyansk. While the Ukrainian troops are continuing their attacks, there are some very interesting developments taking place within the Russian army. A fighter jet belonging to the Russian Air Forces crashed recently. According to reports of local sources, the Russian Il-39 fighter jet was conducting a training flight within Russia's borders. At the head of the training flight was Russian Colonel Vadim Gurov. At the same time, Colonel Vadim Gurov was the director of one of the important training bases of the Russian Air Force. An unexpected incident happened during training. A Russian Il-39 fighter jet exploded in the air. Colonel Vadim Gurov was also in the plane that circled and fell to the ground. Along with the crash of the airplane, Colonel Vadim Gurov also lost his life. Local sources share with the public many different claims about the downing of the Russian Il-39 fighter jet. According to the allegations, the fighter jet was defective, and this malfunction was known by many authorities. However, the Russian Air Force planned this training a long time ago and announced it to the world. Therefore, the Russian army did not accept the cancellation of this training. The defective combat vehicle was lifted into the air despite all the negativities. Russian Colonel Vadim Gurov also knew this, but he carried out the training because he had to follow the orders of his superiors. Therefore, Gurov became a victim of the ambition of the Russian Air Force. While the attacks of the Ukrainian Armed Forces are continuing in full scale, the Russian Armed Forces are suffering heavy losses in the front line and behind the front line. Heavy losses of weapons, losses of military equipment, losses of armed vehicles, and losses of military personnel of the Russian army are increasing every day. According to the latest data, the losses of the Russian army since the beginning of the war are as follows: 254,920 military personnel, 4,313 tanks, 8,370 armored personnel vehicles, 5,128 artillery systems, 714 MLRS, 482 air defense systems, 315 combat vehicles, 314 helicopters, 4,242 unmanned aerial vehicles, 1,387 cruise missiles, 18 warships and assault boats, 7,584 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 769 special equipment. What do you guys think? Do you think the Ukrainian army will launch more Storm Shadow missiles attacks? How will the attacks of the Storm Shadow missiles affect the Russian military? How will the deactivation of Russian commanders affect the war? What do you think about the losses of the Russian army? We care about your opinions. Please share them with us.